Oh, this is fantastic from the Australians. They've kicked away. They've got gas in the tank. They're three parts of the boat. They're ahead of the Romanians and France and Great Britain. The Australians look like going for back-to-back gold. 200 metres to go now for the Australians. They're charged. They're charging. They're lifting the boat out of the water. Look at the paddles.
Britain finishing fast. Britain coming up on them, but the Australians have got a little bit left.
I think they've got
to lift it.
They'll have to lift it now. Britain coming at the Australians. Can they hang on? It's Australia and Great Britain. Over on the far side of the course. There are challenges from everywhere. Can they just get there?
Aussie.
2 tracks to go. Yes, go to Australia. Fantastic effort. I think France has come in second, but Australia has won back-to-back gold in the Awesome Foursome. You little rippers!
What a magnificent performance that was from the great James Tomkins. He won 3 Olympic gold medals in his magnificent rowing career, 6 Olympic Games. Can you believe that? Spread over 20 years. And he's my guest today on Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans, who deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital, and they do Zoom as well. James, welcome to the program. Great to chat.
Thanks, Dan. A pleasure to be on, mate.
Now, it's been a long career, 20 years, 6 Olympic Games. Do you look back and think, sometimes, why did I put my body through that?
Sometimes, but more often than not. No, 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's just very, very fond memories. I loved the training. I loved the people that I rode with, the coaches, that whole environment. But mostly, I think the thing for me, for my longevity, was that I loved just trying to test myself, just to see how far, or just keep improving, essentially. See if I could keep improving by skill and physiology. So that was really the driving factor. But it was, I actually loved the training. I really enjoyed the training, so it wasn't a chore for me.
So when I say, or you say you enjoyed the training, we're talking out on the Yarra River in the middle of winter, beautiful blue skies above, freezing temperatures below, and you love that, James Tomkins.
Well, I did like it. It's just everyone loves a sense of purpose and something to strive for, and some things are harder to strive for. And Dan, if it was easy, everyone would do it. So the hard things are the things worthwhile, and but to do it with some of your best mates and have that obligation to them. Some mornings you don't feel like getting out of bed and going training, but if you don't, you're going to be letting down your teammates. So that's that beautiful Australian culture of not letting your mates down. And that was when it got a bit tough and you didn't want to do it, that was the driving factor.
And was that at the end? Mind you, you were 43 by the time that came, or were there other times in between Olympic campaigns?
No, I think probably in the middle was when you start to it gets a bit of a grind. At the end, I was like a kid again. I had the chance. I was married and we had 3 children, and my wife was unbelievable to say, go for it. That's who you are, and that's what you do. So go for it. So I was almost like a kid again, being able to go up to the Institute of Sport and knowing it was my last couple of years, and to actually really, really enjoy just being a pure athlete, not an athlete who's working and a father, but just having the ability to go to the AIS. My wife and kids were still back in Melbourne, and just to be able to concentrate solely on that. So it was almost like the start was super exciting, and the end was going back to that start almost. But the middle was when you're right in the sweet spot of your career, I guess. We're going really well in the 4s and then the pairs as well with Drew, and it was never a hardship, but it just it's hard work. It's a really, really tough sport, and sometimes it gets a bit of a grind.
You're the only rower who has won a world championship in all sweep events. So the 5 sweep events. Explain to those that don't quite understand the sport of rowing, the technical aspects of that. How difficult is that to do, to go from one boat to another?
Well, there's 2 forms of rowing. There's sculling. So that's me with 2 oars, 1 in each hand. So that's sculling. Or there's sweep, which is me with 1 oar. And obviously I need teammates with oars out the other side to make the boat go straight. So I was a sweep rower, and I started in the 8, and we won a world championship in the 8, and then we got into the 4. So sorry, Dan, there's 5 events. So there's the 8, there's 2 4s, a coxed and coxless 4, and 2 pairs, coxed and coxless. And just to make it even more confusing, now at the Olympic Games, there's only an 8, a 4, and a pair. And the 4 and the pair are both coxless. So in the Olympics, they don't have those coxed smaller boats. So anyway, over an extended period of time, I was able to get myself into various boats. And the coxed 4 and the coxed pair, that was almost like an interim period getting back into the sport after the 96 Olympics.
How different, sorry, James, how different is the coxed pairs and coxed 4s? Obviously, you've got a cox there, but it's not as simplistic as that compared to the coxless 4s and coxless pairs.
Yeah, it's it's a hell of the boats without coxswains are a hell of a lot quieter because you don't have some little bloke or girl sitting in the bow yelling at you. You go faster without them because you got 55 kilos of extra weight. So, but it is and because of that weight, it's a very different feel. Like you wouldn't think, we're all 100 kilos and the boat's 50 kilos, for example. So you got in a 4, you've got 450 kilos. You add another 50 to that. So it's another 10% ish. And it actually makes quite a difference to the feel of the boat and the way the boat runs. So it actually is a little bit different in the way that you apply the power and how the boat responds to that. So it is a little bit different, but nothing that takes a long time to get your head around and work it out.
James Tomkins is my guest on Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures. 6-time Olympian, yes, 6-time Olympian. 3-time Olympic gold medalist, and he also won a bronze medal as well in the pairs. We're here for Aussie Home Loans. Our areas of expertise include purchasing a property, building a property portfolio, refinancing, debt consolidation, cash out, construction, pre-approvals, first home buyers, equipment loans, car loans, and personal loans. So you'd had success, obviously, at Carey Grammar in the 8s, or experience at Carey Grammar in the 8s, the King's Cup was your domain for a long, long time, the national championships in the 8s. You did okay in your first Olympic Games in the 8s. Was it always an aim to go into the 4s?
Not necessarily. So back, so a little bit of a history lesson. Actually, you touched on Carey. Interestingly, Dan, our coach at Carey, or my coach at Carey, was Noel Donaldson.
Yes.
Who ended up being our coach in the 4s. So, obviously I had a fantastic coach at school, which was a great grounding. And then to have such a great friend and great coach when we're in the 4 in 92 and 96 was phenomenal. But a bit of a history lesson. So when I first started, the selectors, or Australian rowing and the selectors, prioritised the 8. That just seemed to be the normal thing you did. You get your 8 best rowers, stick them in that boat, and that was it. And it wasn't... so we raced in Seoul and came 5th, and we were a little, we were upset about that result. And we got back on the water in 1989. So that was 88. So 89. And remember the Berlin Wall came down?
Yes.
At that time.
Mm.
And a whole bunch of East German coaches of various sports were now looking for work elsewhere around the world. Not their scientists, but the coaches. I've got to stress that.
Yes.
And Australia was able to get this guy called Teo Kerner, Teo Kerner, this phenomenal coach. He was responsible for and East Germany used to dominate the rowing. For one, they rowed really, really well and they were trained very well, but they also, history would say that they had some other assistants as well. But he came out, this coach that was he was responsible for like 70 Olympic and World Championship gold medals.
Yeah.
And he came out to Australia and he saw us rowing in the four. And he just told the selectors, don't worry about the eight, just leave these guys alone in the four and let them do their thing. And we'll make one or two changes. Made one change to the personnel. Nick Green came into the boat. And so it was this guy, Teo Kerner from East Germany, who'd come to Australia and lived here for 4 or 5 years before going off and coaching elsewhere, who saw us and saw the potential of us in that boat. So that was the real reason. And the change from just typically throwing everyone in the eight to actually looking at different boat classes and smaller boats and trying to put your best rowers in the best boat that's got the best chance of being successful. And so, and it worked. We won the World Champs in 1990, 91, and then Barcelona in 92. So all because of the Berlin Wall coming down and us getting this guy coming to Australia.
Which obviously was fantastic for the sport. Sam Patton was in the initial crew. Was he disappointed?
Yeah.
Because he eventually went into the eights, didn't he? I think in 1992, and Nick came in.
Yeah, that was super tricky. Fantastic friend of all of ours.
Yeah.
And we won. He was in the boat, the original four. He was in the boat and we raced down in Tassie in 1990 in Lake Barrington and won the World Championships there. But he was doing a medical degree at Monash. And he'd been taking forever doing the medicine degree because of all the training. And it got to the point where I think it was like the head of faculty said, listen, Sam, if you don't finish your course, you're almost going to have to go back to the start and start again because the curriculum's changed. And so he had to make the decision because of his studies to go back and miss 1991. And so Andrew Cooper came into the boat. And unfortunately for Sam, we won again at the World Championships in 1991. And so it was, the feeling was that we'd made a change to 91. We don't want to make another change to go back. We've got a winning crew and let's not make another change when we actually don't need to. And that's essentially the reasons for that decision. But it was super hard. Like and when you think back of the success that we had and all of that sort of thing, that you got 5 guys to fit into 4 seats, and he's one of your best mates, it's like really, really hard. And it was really, really hard at the time, and it was hard after our race. And we're seeing those guys go off to race the 8, and Sam was in that boat. He's there's all sorts of different emotions going along depending on which what your perspective is.
Did he finish?
So that was really hard.
Did he finish his medical degree? And he's a doctor?
Yeah, yep. Oh, he's a very, very successful orthopedic surgeon now. Right. So, and we all see each other still very regularly, which is great.
You're high achieving, you rowers, aren't you? I mean, there's quite a few doctors, lawyers, financial planners, people working in the financial servicing area like your good self. What is it about rowers and the fact that they're also successful away from the water and out of the boat?
Because we don't get any money whatsoever from the sport. So,
that probably helps.
So you got to fend for yourself, Dan. We all, we did rowing at school, and then, typically you're doing some sort of study whilst training, and to support yourself, you got to work whilst. Or certainly back when we were going around, my typical day was to go to training down on the Yarra at Mercantile Rowing Club, go across the Yarra up to RMIT and do my finance degree, and then after that, go across the Yarra, go to work, and then train early, late afternoon and go home. And so it was train, work, train every day. And that was just to, pay the bills and be able to afford to keep training and go overseas and do all that sort of stuff. So it was almost like it was a necessity. But I think also, like it is well, traditionally a private school sport. And so you've got that pathway. I mean, it just seemed normal that you do school and then you go to university. So there's that aspect as well. That's sort of the path that you take, and and I think it's a shame, Dan, that that's not the fact that I think one of the reasons why I and the other guys did the sport for as long as we did was because we had that balance in our lives. It wasn't just rowing. It was rowing and study, or rowing and some work. And so you always had other things in your life to give you a bit of balance. Whereas nowadays, I mean, the guys and the girls train in rowing, they train so hard that there's basically no time to do much else. I mean, when I started, it was twice a day.
Yep.
And we got Thursday mornings off and Sundays off. And when I finished, it was 3 or 4 times a day with no days off. And so the volume has gone up enormously, and it just doesn't leave any time to work and to have that balanced life. So it's they're a bit behind the 8 ball when they finish up the sport.
Do you think in 1992, the 4 of you put this sport on the map in this country? And who coined you the Awesome Foursome, which has gone down as one of the great sporting names in the history of this country? That can't be denied, James.
Well, thank you. Bruce Eva, who you will know of or know.
Yes.
I think, he was writing an article, and, another awesome performance from these guys. And then he just put the two together, the Awesome Foursome. And so that's where that came from. It wasn't any commercial genius coming up with it. It was just referred to in the paper, and that sort of stuck. And then I guess for putting the sport on the map, I mean, we were super fortunate that we'd won the preceding 2 World Championships, 1990 and 91. So, newspapers and magazines were predicting how Australia was going to go and what events we were going to do well in, and we were always up there, along with Kieran, the equestrian team. Kathy Watt would have got a mention as well. So, and we only won 5 events in 92. So it wasn't like the raft of medals that we're winning now. And then our race, Dan, was at 6:20 Australian Eastern Standard Time on a Sunday night, and Channel 7 broke into the news. So they've got their news bulletin at 6 o'clock, and at 6:20 they crossed live to Barcelona to watch it. So pretty much everyone in Australia is watching the news, and especially Channel 7 during the Olympics. And they crossed to our race, and we're successful. And so I think most of the country saw that race, and we're a knockabout bunch of guys. And I think we we trained hard, but we had a good time celebrating as well.
Yes, we'll get to that in a second, James. I've heard some stories about that. I've heard you're a shy, retiring type that you don't like a beer. Great to have James Tomkins with us. A member of the Awesome Foursome. 3-time Olympic gold medalist. And we're here for Dashing Down to Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans, who deal with anyone in Australia. They've got clients in every state and capital. True or false, James, regarding your celebrations, that when other athletes of the Australian team finish their events, you organise parties every night and you just got them to jump on to have the fun that you were having and to celebrate like you were celebrating, to ensure that everyone enjoyed your special moment? I believe there was a leader of that group, and I went to school with his brother, His name is his brother's name is John Mackay. His name is Mike Mackay. He sort of started all of that, and he was a bit like the Pied Piper, and everyone just jumped on. You had a great time together as the Australian team holistically.
Yeah, well, I mean, rowing finishes in the first week.
Yeah.
And you've got swimming finishing in the first week as well. So in the village, you've got two really big sports that finish that first weekend.
Yeah.
So the competition's over that period. So the whole second week is is all track and field, which is phenomenal to go and watch, but also all the teams events. So you got the men's and women's hockey, you got soccer, you got the basketball, volleyball, all those big team events. And it is just this gathering mass of athletes that have finished their events that then go out and support all these other events. And, you're having a great time supporting the other Australian teams. And then that then rolls into the evening. And it's just this snowball of as more and more athletes finish, more and more athletes are joining the celebration of being there, the Olympic experience, supporting the other teams, Aussie teams, and you go to a World Championships in rowing and there's just rowers.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously at the games there's all of these other sports, and it's the first, it's once every 4 years we get to hang out with all these other superstars from the Aussie team, and phenomenal athletes, and so there's so much in common. You get on like a house on fire, so it's just this snowball of celebrating the experience and supporting the other teams, the other Aussie teams.
Then you became popular outside the sport when you returned to Australia, and SPC jumped on board. Good move or bad move to do that commercial, James? Probably for your back pocket, a good move. How did it look doing that commercial?
Oh, we loved it. We don't mind taking the mickey out of ourselves, and it was obviously extremely successful because they made about 7 of them. So,
how did you feel about that?
I
was just going to ask, how did you feel about that when obviously you had managers by then, or you had people that were looking after you, marketers, said SPC are keen on doing a commercial with you?
Well, as I alluded to before, we were basically broke. So anyone who wanted to give us a bit of coin to do something like that, we'd say yes. And it was, we were very successful on water. And those, I'll walk down the street now and still some people go, it won't be there's that bloke that went to 6 Olympics. It's there's that guy off the fruit ad. So it's still... There's still people that remember, and my kids are always getting it up. They're adults now, but they all have a laugh and get it up on YouTube. And now my daughters show their niece. They get the YouTube ads up and show, here's Uncle James, on these fruit ads. So they live on, Dan.
And did you eat a lot of the product at the time, James?
Oh yes, absolutely. The peach, I love some peaches on the Weet-Bix cereal in the morning.
Excellent.
And a bit of ice cream as well. Very nice on the ice cream.
Well, you need to have the ice cream, don't you? You need to have the Weet-Bix to keep your strength up, as they say. So to 1996,
yes,
Andrew Cooper's out. He retired, and then Drew Ginn comes in. I take it didn't change the mix too much. It didn't change. It certainly didn't stop you from gelling well, because you were as good, if not better. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Coops, we took him. We left our run very late, Dan, because we thought, basically we were retired after 92 because we thought that was it. There was no way we could do better. And then we realized we could, but we'd been celebrating quite well. And in fact, we were sponsored by Tui's.
Oh.
And that had taken its toll on us a little bit. We looked like puffer fish. We'd blown up a little bit. And so we actually needed to get back on the water to get fit again. And we went to the 95 World Championships where we ended up coming 5th. I think we came 5th or 6th. And Coops decided shortly after that he couldn't commit to another campaign for the Olympics, and so we had to find a replacement. And Drew Ginn was the obvious choice, and yeah, just seamlessly moved in. But interestingly, Dan, 4 years prior, so 1992, when I was preparing for Barcelona, I was actually coaching Scotch College first aid, and Drew was in that crew, and they won the Head of the River.
Wow.
So I coached him at school, and then 4 years later, he's sitting behind me in the Olympic final. And yeah, obviously with his record, similar to mine, phenomenal athlete, had a huge amount of success with him, and he's had success after I finished up. So yeah, he slotted in perfectly, and that 96 race was pretty much, well, actually was the only international race we won in the 4-year block in between 92 and 96. So we timed it to perfection. We almost left it a bit too late, but we got there.
Were you confident going in, James, considering, as you say, you'd left your run late, you had a change in the boat, and you
yeah, we were actually
preparation?
We were. We'd had it wasn't like 92. We'd won everything. We hadn't been beaten, basically, just going in. So it's almost like it's a different mindset. You know, in 92, it was almost like there's no upside. If we win, that's what we're supposed to do. If we lose, that's a disaster. Whereas 96, we're on this massive upward trajectory. I mean, we were flying going into it. But it was still, it was almost, the Italians were the favourites, the Romanians were right up there as well. So we knew we were up against it, but we knew if we were within half a length at the halfway mark, we'd win. And so our goal was just to be within that range. We knew we were faster than everyone else in the back half of the race, and so so that was the plan. And it was a really it was really satisfying to be able to put a plan into place and execute. The first time round, you sort of don't really know what you're doing. It's all a huge amount of nerves and anxiousness and tension. Whereas this time round, it was a little bit more calculated. I mean, obviously the nerves and the anxiety and the tension's going through the roof, but to lay down that performance when it really, really mattered was great. And we had like a second and a half or 2 seconds lead with about 300 metres to go, and we only won by 0.6 of a second. So we were blowing up like you wouldn't believe, but we hung on and got across the line.
So was that
another snowballing celebration, Dan?
Oh, I heard about that, yes. Just on that, were the celebrations bigger in 96 because of the fact that you hadn't had the preparation leading up to that compared to 92? And there was more like a feeling of, wow, we've done this, or was it similar to 92? You just had a good time again, James.
Oh, no, it's similar.
The boys could.
Yeah. Similar, yeah. I mean, no, it was just, again, you're doing, again, so thankful and fortunate to be able to do it with some of your best mates. And, when you do it, to be able to share those experiences, to have other people that have gone through exactly what you've gone through. And even now, we, every now and again talk about it and different emotions. To be able to share that with other people is really cool. If you're an individual athlete, only you know what you've been through and what it was like to sit on that start line and to go through that and the various aspects of the race and what happened at the 500 metre mark and what happened at 1,000. Whereas when you do it with others, you've always got that shared experience, which I think is really cool. And that's what makes the reflections in that second week really, really memorable as well.
The whole rowing team performed well in Atlanta, didn't they? So that would have been just as satisfying. Mm.
Absolutely. I think it was our best games.
Mm.
I'm just trying to think of. Maybe Tokyo was actually pretty good.
It was,
but yeah, that was 92. We got 2 gold medals. 96 gold, a few bronzes, a few silvers, 2 gold because the women's pair got a gold
Megan
there.
and Kate,
Sydney, yeah, that's right. Sydney, no gold. Athens, yeah, we got one, and then yeah. Anyway, they've always, regardless of all, rowing's always been pretty strong for Australia, and 96 was definitely one of those ones that was right up there.
Do you feel responsible for helping make Australia a strong entity in rowing, considering all the success?
Yeah, yeah. I do, and we do. But I think it was not just the athletes. I think it's the decision to get Teo Kerner, the East German coach, to Australia to change the way the sport and the selectors thought. In the past, you just basically, the sport, you just get the biggest lumps of guys and girls and put them in the boat, whether they're athletic or not. And then sort of our era, big skillful people. So instead of playing footy and cricket, there was another option of actually doing rowing. So you're getting these really good athletes that now were entering the sport. So you've got the size as well as the skill. So there was that different mindset. And then, again, going back to the selectors being brave, not to just dump all the best people in the 8, but actually really target specific boats. And have we got 4 really good people? Sure. Okay, let's whack them in the 4 and let's prioritize that. Or it might be a pair. So just a different mindset. And then I think once you get some success, other guys and girls down the riverbank on the Yarra, they're going, wow, they see us train every day. Wow, they can do it. Well, maybe we can. And then there's just this, again, this snowball effect, not only in Victoria, but around Australia, that we can actually compete on the world stage. We can compete really successfully on the world stage. We've got some of the best coaches in the country, some of the best physiologists in the country up at the Institute of Sport, and athletes that can train all year round because of our climate. So you put all of that together, and a sports mad nation that loves the water. You put all that together, and people start to realise that we go well. We can go well, and we've seen that, and we'll see it again in Paris.
All-time Australian rowing great, one of the greatest, if not the greatest. He's one of only 4 rowers to have participated in the world, that is, in 6 Olympic Games. And when you consider the Olympic Games are every 4 years, that just shows you how durable this great man was, not only on the water, but off the water. And we've spoken a little bit about that already. The great James Tomkins with us on Dashing Down to Olympic Adventures for Aussie Home Loans. So 96 ends, Sydney's 4 years away. Obviously, you were keen to go on, James, and you were keen to go on as the Awesome Foursome, but it didn't work out that way, did it? But you still went on.
Correct. Yeah, correct. We Home Olympics. It's like, pinnacle to compete there. And we tried to keep the 4 together. Nick Green retired. There was a 4 in Sydney that was coming up really strongly. And Drew and I ended up rowing a pair together in 1999. And which won by miles. We won by miles. So won the World Championships by about 7 seconds. So the selectors, it was a pretty simple decision. But it would have been, it would have been really nice because Steve Redgrave, of course, the legend in rowing, Sir Steve Redgrave, who won 5 Olympic gold medals in a row.
Yeah.
His last games were Sydney, and he was in the 4. So it would have been really nice for us as going for our 3rd on the trot against Steve going for his 5th. It would have been a pretty amazing race. But with Nick retiring and not getting yeah, just the dynamic wasn't there anymore. And so, and Drew and I ended up in the pair. And as I said, it absolutely flew. So the selector said, well, you guys are it. But then that Drew had some other issues leading into Sydney with some back issues.
Yeah, that made it tough. I'll get to that in just a second. Just want to ask you about Sir Stephen Redgrave. Why was he so good, James?
Well, he's obviously his physiology and skills. And I asked his coach, Mike Spracklin, English coach, and I said, what makes him so good? And he goes, his ability to combine with others. I mean, rowing is I think it's the ultimate team sport. So your ability to combine really well with the other members in the crew, and in the pair is probably the hardest boat to do it in. That was his skill. Some people, you get in a pair and it'll be fighting against each other all the time. Others, it'll just be this perfect gelling harmony. And he was that sort of person that could just row with anyone and make it go well. And I think that's when, your best rowers are really good at that. They can make it work. They find a way to make it work. But that was his skill. He rowed with a whole bunch of different people and it always went fast.
And was it an honour to sort of row against him, or did you know that when you were rowing against him, it was always going to be hard work to beat him?
Well, funnily enough, I only rowed against him once.
Really?
And that was a Commonwealth Games race, yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So when we were in the four, they were in the pair.
Yeah.
And so we won in 96 in the four. They won the pair in 96. And then 2000, he went into the four. And I was rowing, or would have rowed with Drew in Sydney. So we went to the pair. So we actually never raced each other at our World Championships or Olympic Games, which was quite convenient because, we race against each other. Someone's going to win and someone's going to lose.
Correct. But two of the
probably
greats.
Him.
Oh, it probably would have been him, James. No, you've got to be confident. I hear you are confident. I know you well enough to know that you are confident through other people as well. Now, 2000, Drew got injured. Matthew Long comes into the boat. Did you know Matthew? Had you had much experience rowing with him? You didn't have a lot of time. You did a pretty good job, didn't you, to finish third, and you weren't far away from winning gold. I think, just over a second or something.
Yeah, like that was, Dan, that was, that's right up there as one of the proudest things, or, as far as achievements. Drew hurt his back really badly, like ruptured a couple of discs.
Wow.
About 6 weeks before the games at our selection regatta in Switzerland. So Drew's back was such that we couldn't actually compete in the selection trials, but we were reigning world champions. So the selectors said, go to Europe, and there's a regatta in Switzerland 6 weeks before the Olympics, and we'll send the boat that had won all the trials. So there's 2 Australian boats at this regatta, and whoever finishes ahead goes to the games. And we were warming up for the heat at this regatta, and the first warm-up piece we did, Drew ruptured 2 discs in his back and was in absolute agony. And so Matt Long actually jumped in, and we had a 15-minute warm-up for the heat. And we were talking about Steve Redgrave having to combine. Well, fortunately, both Matt and I can do that, and we were able to combine really well. And we ended up actually winning the regatta, unbelievably. And even more difficult was the fact that Longy actually rowed on the same side as me. So I row with my oar out the right side.
Yes.
And it's like writing left-handed. You can do it, but it's terrible. Well, Longy had to learn to row essentially left-handed.
What, in 15 minutes?
In a very short order.
Was
Pretty much, yeah.
Amazing. James,
we got through the heat. We won the semi, and then we won the final, and we got our spot into the game. So it was all that huge emotion through that, knowing that this is it for the Sydney Games. You know, you finish ahead of the other crew and you're going to the game. So there was a lot of emotion, Dan, I can assure you, mate. I'm an emotional person when it comes to racing, and close to tears the whole time.
For the uninitiated, James, how difficult is it at such short notice? I mean, no one can learn how to write in their opposite hand in 15 minutes, as you sort of were using that as an analogy with changing the side of the boat that you row on. How tough is it to learn in 15 minutes before a race, knowing that your future involvement in a home Olympic Games, which you've been aiming for many years, revolves around Matt being able to learn how to row the other side of the boat?
Yeah, and then the pair is one of the most unstable boats as well. So, I mean, Longy did a phenomenal job. You know, it's not. I mean, it's probably not as bad as writing left hand. I mean, you've got an idea of the movement and how to use your legs, but it's those fine motor skills of hanging onto the blade and making sure that it's going in at the correct angle. And it was pretty rugged the first few rows we had. But again, you know, it is the ultimate team sport, and it's the ability to, you know, I tried to give him as easy a run as possible so that he didn't have to worry about balancing the boat. All he had to worry about is putting the blade in the water, try, you know, get as much effort on as he could and take it out. And if we did that together, we had half a chance. And then, you know, we got through that heat, and so okay, we can do this. You know, it's not a complete disaster. Let's get through the semi-final. And we had another, you know, it was improved again in the semi-final, and then the next day we had the final. And so, you know, it's just, you know, it's sort of, you go through the, you know, the natural grieving process of, you know, woe is me, complaining, super upset, frustrated, blaming Drew, you know, blaming the world for this. But at some point, you just got to get on with it and go, okay, well, this is the situation. One of your best mates is really, really injured and probably isn't going to get a chance to go to the games full stop. We've still got a chance. This is the cards we've been dealt with, and let's knuckle down and do it. So you go through all of that, but eventually you get to that point where you go, right, let's suck it up and get on with the job. But it has to happen fairly quickly.
Sorry, you seem like a naturally positive person, James. You always been like that?
Yeah. Definitely will say that I can do something, even if I haven't done it before. I reckon I could work it out, if that makes sense. But I was confident. Longy had to do the hard yards. Matt Long had to, you know, really fine tune his skill set and to combine. And I remember our coach, that would have been Dono. He knew that Drew possibly could have this injury, and Longy was waiting in his rowing gear just in case.
Wow. And
so it's those, you know, for Dono to have the foresight. If Longy's not ready and he's got to get changed and jump in the boat, we probably missed the start. So just to understand the situation and have Longy ready, he was hiding behind a tree, so we didn't see him.
Yeah.
But to have him ready just in case, and then the eventuality came about, and for him to jump in, and anyway, it was an incredible regatta. And as you said, yeah, then we had the time back in Australia to prepare for the Sydney Games.
Is there a special bond between you and Matthew Long because of that?
Yeah. And Longy's, you know, I didn't know him that well. I knew him, but I didn't know. But he and Drew were really good friends.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice that, you know, they're both great mates, and we are all now great mates. And Longy, you know, he downplays it quite a bit, but you know, for him to be thrown into, yeah, like if Drew was fit, we would have won in Sydney. I can say that, you know, pretty confidently. But for Longy to jump into a boat that's supposed to do really well in Sydney and take the seat of one of his best mates, who's was in agony and really injured and in a very bad way, potentially not ever rowing again. There was a whole lot of emotions on all fronts. We named the boat Drew Ginn,
right,
to race in Sydney. So there was all of that, beautiful sort of underlay of story in there, and and we gave it a really good crack in Sydney, and as you said, it was a super tight race. The French went bananas, and we couldn't respond to that. But I know, we know the course really well, and there's a drain on that Sydney course I think it's about 150 metres to go.
Yeah.
And we're in fourth position. And I remember seeing that drain going, there's no bloody way I'm not getting a medal, and just went all out that last 150, and Longy moved, he responded the same, and we just got over the line to get a bronze medal. So it was an amazing year.
This is Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures with James Tomkins, three-time Olympic gold medalist. He also won a bronze medal in Sydney in 2000 in the pairs in rowing. James, what was it like racing in front of a home crowd in 2000?
Oh, it's phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Actually, it was interesting. It's like, I loved the games, but it was phenomenal to be in front of your home crowd. But on the other hand, it can be quite distracting as well, because you got so many friends and family up there. I mean, not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just, like it was awesome. I mean, the crowds were huge, and there was so much support, and Sydney was just phenomenal as far as the games is concerned. But I've just found it, it was just hard, like with so many people that and know you, and I guess everything that we'd actually been through to get to that point. It was just, personally, I found it a little distracting. But then, having said that, to race in front of your home crowd at an Olympic Games was just, the actual racing and the games environment was just phenomenal. From the opening ceremony with 120,000 people in the stadium, and Sydney just turning it on like you wouldn't believe, and being so proud. Like, it was really a proud moment. Like, being an Australian, I think all of Australia was super proud of what we could actually put on when we really think about it and give it a good go. Even when Kathy's standing there with the cauldron, which sort of stopped
it did
for a bit of time, I think, oh my God, this thing's going to stuff up, and then it got going again. And thank the dear Lord, But to be so proud that we could put something so incredible on that the rest of the world's watching. We've got the whole world here in Sydney, in Australia, and we put on this unbelievable event. And then to be actually compete in that event was a super proud moment.
I know time's on the wing, James. I really appreciate your time for Aussie Home Loans, but I need to ask you about 2004. You were 35 in sporting terms. That's veteran. I know you played some footy as well, and your career's over by then. Did you still have unfinished business in 2004 because you wanted, with the greatest respect to Matthew Long, you wanted to participate in an Olympic Games in the pairs with your great mate Drew Ginn?
Drew. Yeah, so he went and got it. Yeah, so he went and got his back operated on. I was actually 39 in that race, Dan.
Yeah, 35 after Sydney. Yeah.
Yeah, 35 at Sydney, 39 in Athens. So Drew went and had his back operated on. The surgeon said, that's it. You're never going to row again. But Drew knows better than everyone, and he used rowing as rehab.
Yeah.
And if you know Drew, you would understand what I'm saying. Like, he's he's a special individual, and it became apparent that we could start racing, and we got selected, and we won the World Champs in 2003, and then that led into Athens, which was, I think it was one of my favourite games just because of the history of it. Athens, birthplace, or Greece, the birthplace of the games in antiquity, and then the birthplace of the modern Olympics in 1896, and then to do that. There was that sense of unfinished business that we had missed in Sydney, and then to do that with Drew back up to speed. I was 39. It was 8 years in between games for Drew. It was just it was really special, and it was a phenomenal race as well. We had our wives were there, our both sets of parents were there as well, and to be able to, we had enough of a margin where you can really, you're not sprinting madly we were sprinting, but it's not do or die to the finish line. You've actually got enough of a margin to enjoy crossing the finishing line and take it all in. So that was that was very nice. Very, very nice.
Did you think about retirement after that? If my memory serves me right, I think you were in retirement as your 40th birthday approached. But was there still an itch to be scratched, James? Obviously there was.
Well, there was. I mean, as I said at the outset, I enjoy the training, I enjoy the sport, I enjoy hanging around with really interesting, driven people. And I always thought that I could do one more, and physically and mentally I could. And then, as I mentioned, my wife, Bridget, I remember talking to her, and, because I knew it was going to be a huge burden on the family, on her in particular, with 3 small children and me going off gallivanting around the world. But to have her support, and for her just to say, like, straight up, go. It's what you are. It's what you do. It's who you are. And who was she to deny me? I've got these natural abilities and this gift. That why would she be the one to stop me from doing that? So that's why she's the sort of person that she is, and that's why we're still very much a fantastic team, our own little pair outside of the sport of rowing. So as soon as she said that, it was like, that was pressure off, go for it. And to be able to enjoy my last 2 years and go to the Beijing Games, where China opened itself up to the rest of the world, a whole bunch of new guys, basically essentially down a generation. I'm one generation older than all of these guys. There was a guy sitting behind me half my age.
Really?
I was 42 and he's 21.
Wow.
So pretty exciting. And then, to carry the flag into the stadium and present the team to the rest of the world was, it's a bit of a cliche, Dan, when people say their heart's bursting out of their chest with pride. But honestly, when I was given the Australian flag and walked through that tunnel out into that stadium, it was just next level as far as Aussie pride. Seriously, I'm actually getting emotional talking about it now. Like, it was just, it was so amazing to present this team chock full of some of the best athletes in the country to China and the rest of the world. Was phenomenal.
Did you have an inkling that you'd be carrying the flag, James? Or I keep hearing, and I was part of the 2018 Commonwealth Games team as part in the media department, and we had an inkling that it was going to be Mark Knowles, the hockey player, but I'm not sure the athletes did, or even the person or the people themselves. Did you have an inkling at all?
Yeah, I knew I was a pretty good chance. 6 games, having won a few medals along the way. I thought I was up there with a good chance. And then when John Coates rang me the day before and asked me to do it, it was And interesting that he's been the chef for each of my 6 games. He was the chef de mission for each of those 6 games. So we're great friends. And for him to ask me to do that was really, really nice. But I had a pretty good idea that I would be, one of 2 or 3 in the mix.
Any chance the pairs, or did you know that it was unlikely? I mean, Duncan Free and Drew went on to win a gold medal, which no doubt would have pleased you to see Drew get a chance to win his 3rd gold medal like you, or are you disappointed that as a mate mucking around saying, I wish you'd only won 2 and I've won 3, or you're rapt that he won it with Duncan Free, who's another one of our great rowers, isn't he?
Yeah, no. I mean, no, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Those 2 guys jumped in the boat straight after Athens and were successful straight away. So that was the path that we were taking. No, I mean, I was, so pleased for them. Drew, again, his back was really bad bleeding in, and he wasn't even sure he was going to be able to race. So again, to be able to get through that was incredible. I don't think he got full feeling back in one of his legs for 12 months after that race. Seriously, like his back was another operation. So for him to do that, phenomenal. And we're sharing the same apartment in the village. Still a great mate. Saw him last weekend actually, and Nick. And Duncan. Actually, we had a dinner, all 4 of us. So it was very nice.
Was that a quiet night, James?
It was. Well, yeah, it was actually. I mean, it was great. We're all a lot older now, Dan.
I know that, 60, James. I know that. I know that.
59 this year.
Really? You don't look it. You're looking absolutely. You could probably still. Do you feel you could? I mean, you didn't seem to suffer the injuries that poor old Drew and some of the others suffered, or not that we knew about. Do you think you could still go out and compete now? Physically?
Oh, not yet. Not at that level. Not at the level I did. No, I'm still active, still doing stuff. So my philosophy is use it or lose it. So you got to keep using it.
Was it just before I
want to be fit and healthy?
Yeah, correct. Was it a nice symmetry to start with the 8 and finish with the 8, considering you'd won all those King's Cups for Victoria in the 8 as well? What was it, 15? Staggering record, that.
Yeah. Well, I had some pretty good people to row with.
Yeah.
Mike, Nick, Peter Anthony, Sam Patton, all these sorts of guys. We had a pretty good squad. The Doyle brothers, Jon Popper, Jim Lowe, all of these sorts of characters. Just phenomenal athletes that we had at that time all the way through. I mean, I guess it's really nice symmetry. We came 6th in Beijing, disappointing. We had to go through the repechage, a second chance. And I think, that was almost our final. Just to make the final was, the repechage is super high pressure race. And I think for the crew, that was almost the final. So it was a little bit disappointing, but all things being said, no complaints whatsoever, just to go through that experience with those guys. And as you said, nice symmetry. Started off in the 8, 4, 4, pair, 8. And then watching that flame slowly extinguish, thinking, that's it. Or should I have a crack at London?
You didn't think that?
Saner heads prevailed, Dan.
Good. Where are the medals, James? There's plenty of them.
Hey?
There's plenty of medals. 4 of them at least. And then,
yes, I've got the World Championship ones hanging on a hook.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they're all hanging. I've got 7 of those. They're hanging on a hook on my mirror.
Oh.
In the bathroom. And the Olympic ones are in a box somewhere or other.
What do you?
I did have them at the Gallery of Sport. I've got them at home now.
What do your daughters say about it all? When they were a bit younger, of course, when you were racing and when you finished, I mean, would they say, "Oh, my dad's a four-time Olympian"? Oh, sorry, four-time Olympic medalist, three-time gold medalist, six-time Olympian. No doubt, daughters alike with their dads. They think we're all embarrassing, don't they, James? But I'm sure deep down they'd be very proud of you.
Oh yeah, like they are. They are. Um, they, and when they were younger, they'd, you know, no, they are. They are very proud, I think. And as they got older and older, they started to realise, what was involved. And fortunately, I was involved at the ISC as well, so they were able to tag along to a few Olympic Games and to see what it was all about. And yeah, they're super active as well into sport. They all gave rowing a go, and now all into basketball. I got one daughter over in the States playing in college over there.
Wow!
So they all understand the importance of being active and being in sport and sporting clubs and what that can do for you. And I think, and they've seen the Olympics and love the whole notion of bringing the world together for a particular reason, which is sport. And you and I know that that's one of the last remaining things that does bring the whole world together.
It does. Yeah, we still love it. I mean, you're looking forward to the games, and how do you think Australia will go in the rowing? They look pretty strong, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. The guys are really strong. The girls in particular. We've got our single sculler, Tara Rigney. Yeah. She's going really well. She will medal. It could be a gold, could be a silver, could be a bronze. There's three girls that are super close, that are a long way ahead of everyone else. Jess Morrison and Annabelle in the pair, they're going really well. And I mentioned in the men's program, we used to prioritise the 8, then we went to the 4s and the pairs. Well, now we've gone back to the 8. They've made the 8 the priority boat. So we've put 3 guys out of the 4 that won in Tokyo. They're in the 8, as well as obviously the other 5 rowers and the coxswain. So I'm super keen to see how they go. Should be and the 8. It is the blue ribbon event up against the Poms, who will be super hard to knock off, but it should be a cracking race. But I think, we should have another really good a good regatta, definitely over in Paris, and I can't wait for it.
Were you a good footballer, James? Could have you had a career as an AFL player if rowing wasn't your chosen sport, which in the end ended up being a great decision? I heard you were a good footballer.
In between, after 88, in 1989, I was actually drafted by Melbourne.
Yes.
To go and play. So I'd been involved in, when I was at school, I was involved with Hawthorn in their Crimmins squad. And then, ended up playing half a season in the Resis for Melbourne. So I got to play on the MCG a couple of times, which was such a thrill. But I always knew I was that rowing was where I was best. But you look at the MCG on grand final day or a massive match, and there's 90,000 people there, and it's all every kid would love to be out there. So I always think back, maybe what if, but I think I'd made the right decision.
I think every kid would love to have won Olympic gold medals as well. Can I just get a quick answer from you, if you don't mind? I really, again, appreciate your time for Aussie Home Loans on Dashing Dan's Olympic Adventures. John Coates, misunderstood, James?
A little bit. I think most people understand what he has done for the Australian sporting landscape, and the Olympic movement has just been incredible. To be involved in getting the Sydney Games, involved in getting the Brisbane Games, setting up a foundation that basically funds. So the Australian Olympic team doesn't get any government funding. It's self-funded. And for him to set up a model that does that, it costs a huge amount to send 450, 500 athletes to the games, as well as all the coaches. He has done a phenomenal job. Sure, he's very forthright, and if you get in his way, then it's you don't want to get in his way, basically. But 9 times out of 10, it's the right decision for the most number of people, and he's always been so athlete-centric, just putting the athletes first at every turn.
And Noel Donaldson, describe him as a coach.
Well, again, just a fantastic coach, but a even better leader and facilitator of teams. You've got 4 people, all with pretty strong personalities, to set a vision, implement a training program to allow that vision to occur, and to make sure that everyone's improving individually as well as a crew. Like, for someone to be able to do all that, like, it's real people management. And I think that was his real strength. He had some pretty good cattle to work with. And he was a very good technical coach, but fantastic people management. And a lot of fun along the way as well.
I could imagine. Well, James, you're one of the greats of Australian Olympics. 4 medals, I should say, 3 gold medals, 1 bronze medal, 6 Olympic Games over a 20-year period, which is an unbelievable record. You'll be remembered as one of our all-time greats. It's been a great pleasure chatting to you today. Thank you for giving me so much time, and we thank you for being part of Dashing Down's Olympic adventures for Aussie Home Loans. Their areas of expertise are purchasing a property, building a property portfolio, refinancing, debt consolidation, cash out construction, pre-approvals, first home buyers, and all sorts of loans, including equipment, car loans and personal loans. And they've got over 25 lenders on their panel. Enjoy the Paris Olympics, and thanks again for telling us your magnificent story. It's been a pleasure.